Welcome, everyone. You're listening to Nephology, the podcast dedicated to crypto, accounting, business, finance, and much, much more. I'm Joe David, the founder of Nephology Group in Minor. Please note that all conversations recorded are professional opinions, and if you'd like to know more or gain support, please reach out to the team directly. Now on to the next episode. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the latest episode of the Nephology podcast. I'm delighted to be joined by Kai today. Kai, how you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm really well. Thank you for having me on.
No, thank you for coming. I appreciate your time. And for me, it's always a pleasure to have people give up their time to have conversations. So yeah, thanks for coming on, mate.
Having me.
We met probably a month or so ago, maybe a little bit longer now. And I think you've only kind of recently come to Dubai, is that right? The last 6 months?
Six months and like 10 days.
Yeah, nice. Yeah. Not that you're counting or anything.
Pardon?
I said not that you're counting the days.
No, not that I'm counting. No, not keeping track.
Yeah. Every day outside the UK is a good day in my eyes.
Yeah, 100%.
So you're obviously quite new to Dubai and whatnot. So yeah, it'd be good to hear, for those that don't know who you are, like a little bit about you and what you do.
Yeah, so a little bit about what I do. So my name's Kai Beard. I'm 27 years old. I'm originally from London, born and bred. And about what I do, I'm an upcoming entrepreneur. A few months back, my client flew me out to Poland. We got 90 decision makers in a room. We sold my client's services to the people in the room, and my client made a great ROI. And we had a great time, filmed lots of social media content for them as well. So that gives you a rough idea of what we're doing. And we connect people, CEOs, founders, business owners all over the world, and helping people to develop their business.
Amazing. And you've got a few different things going on from what I can see. And one of the things you seem to be really trying to push at the moment is your kind of Beardo network.
Yeah.
So maybe tell us just a little bit. I know you've mentioned it's connecting people. Maybe tell us a little bit about what we're trying to achieve with that.
Yeah. So thank you for bringing that up. So the Beardo network, first and foremost, it's still very much in the development stage. So I threw my first event in April 2023. And that was a kind of like taking a punt at getting more clients because at the time, I needed more clients. I was stressing for money and I was just trying to think outside the box. Fast forward a year, I'm basically bringing people together, CEOs, founders, and I went to Sweden. I met a guy called Roland, and he started using terms like purpose-driven. I then started pondering on the term purpose-driven, and then I started applying it to what I'm doing. Yeah. So the events kind of went from me trying to get clients, then to me wanting to bring people together, because I believe that in the world that we're living in, and with the economy being the way it is and everything going the way it is, you need strong and capable people around you that can support you, whether they're being clients, whether they're giving you information, sharing contacts, or whether they're just there to meet up, and go for a shisha or go to the pub. And so that's what it's really about. It's about bringing people together to kind of encourage people to support each other.
Yeah, I love that. And one of the things that we spoke about when we first met was mentorship, and you're very strong and big on having a mentor, and you've got a mentor yourself.
Yeah. And shout out to Pete Taylor.
That's been a really big part of your journey, right? Your kind of entrepreneurial journey. Like you say, you're kind of starting out on that journey, but it's been a really big part of you as a person and how you're trying to grow, right?
100%. I'm sure you can relate. Like, we both have journeys that are very option B. So we take the route that isn't quite made for us yet. And we kind of have to make it up with the resources that we're finding along the way, whether that be YouTube videos, courses, or people that we speak to. Yeah. And when we speak about mentors, myself personally, I've had many different kind of mentors in my life. My first one was my boxing coach, Frank. And then my actual business mentor, Pete Taylor. And, the thing is with having a mentor, they have foresight. So they've been in your shoes, they've been where you are, and they're, quite a few steps ahead of you. And they can tell you just do this, this, and this. And if you take action on those kind of instructions, then it's going to make things a lot more simple and quicker for you, rather than you just always having to figure something out.
Yeah, no, for sure. And a lot of people talk about kind of business coaches and things like that. And I think sometimes when people think about business coaches and that sort of area, mentors, whatever you want to call it, they kind of think, you know, maybe a bit fluffy, like they're not really necessarily going to do anything. They're just going to talk around the point.
Yeah.
Tell me why you think that's different.
Well, look, first of all, there definitely are people that are fluffy.
Yeah, of course.
Like there are some people that make me cringe.
Yeah.
Like, you know, some people come up with some concepts. And look, I understand why they're doing it. Everyone's trying to earn their money. Everyone's trying to get ahead in life. So I totally understand it. But there is the fluffy stuff that doesn't make a lot of sense that some people will relate to. And you know, someone will want to go with that. But where I feel like Pete is a lot different is it's practical, it's real advice, and it's like, okay, how are we actually going to move you forwards? And so, yeah, does that answer what you're
it does.
saying?
And I think from what I've seen, and I don't know Pete personally, as you know, but unfortunately I missed the meetup you guys did. I think I was actually in the UK, which was depressing in itself. You know, it seems like what he's trying to do is actually bring a group of kind of, I'm going to say men, but you know, men together to kind of actually be honest. Which sounds like a crazy thing to say, right? Because we should all be honest in the world, but you know, men are not very good at being honest about how they're feeling, what's going on, what the struggles are, what the wins are, you know, all those sorts of things. And it feels like what Pete's trying to do with what he's doing, and I don't want to obviously focus totally on Pete because it's you that's here, and you're trying to do something I think here as well, but it's around more, you know, let's open up as men, let's talk about those struggles, let's talk about those wins, and let's kind of fight them together.
100%. And so Pete does two things, but they are in one. So the first thing that he does is business mentorship. I believe that he built like a 7 or 8 figure architecture business from scratch. You know, that's something, right? And then the next thing he does is called men's work. And that's where he does bring men together. And I would love for us to sit and talk about Pete, because look, Pete has, he's really helping me go from a boy to a man. And I'm someone that didn't really have that guidance in life. And, you know, Pete coming into my life has really changed things for me. And so business mentorship is when someone basically, you know, outlines, these are the things you need to do, go away and do them, and then he helps you track your KPIs, and he gives you, you know, practical advice, do this, do that, stop the bullshit, etc., etc. The men's work is a lot deeper. Like, as you said, men, we do struggle to, you know, speak about our feelings and things like that. And so when you bring men together in a room, you know, 9 times out of 10, like, we're all going through like the same stuff, and actually being able to open up and speak about these sensitive topics, it is a really powerful thing amongst us, and like it really unites us, because I don't really feel like you know, society as a whole, kind of, we're not really allowed to sit in our feelings for too long. It's like, oh no, okay, I feel like this today, but guess what? Got bills to pay, got a family to look after, got, you know, all of this stuff. And so, I think it's really important that he's creating that space. And it's also important that we can speak about these things, like the internal things that are going on, because then we can, number one, speak about it, highlight it, and then we can do something about it, like what's going on inside. Like, for example, super controversial, maybe some guy sneakily masturbates in the shower without his wife knowing. Like, that's like a problem, right? But like, you're not going to admit that to absolutely anybody until maybe you're in a room with another guy that does it.
But how do you get, and on that point, right, how do you get somebody to admit that? Because if they're not, like, that's quite a personal thing for somebody to admit in a room of other men. How do you get someone to...
Well, that's his superpower. First of all, he gets people to open up, and then he gets deep with people. And then it's about going through all of these like inner things, like what's really actually going on. Like there's things that I've opened up to him about that I would have never ever opened up to anybody about. You know, and that's just through his guidance and the way that he structures his events and his meetups and the things that he does.
And do you know what I really love about it as well is the kind of the concept is, if you said to somebody, this is what I'm about to go and do, this is the event I'm about to go to, for what you call it, they would immediately be thinking, oh, it's a men's meetup, all they're going to, it's bravado, it's going to be this, it's going to be chest pumped, it's going to be like, do you know what I mean? Like, there's going to be no kind of emotional or what's the word? You know, when you kind of open up a little bit, you know, vulnerability is the word I'm thinking of. But actually, it's the opposite 100%. From a masculine. You know,
and I think this is also like a misconception of masculinity. So true masculinity means that you are emotionally intelligent. It means that you're able to sit and speak about your feelings and be honest about your feelings and be brave enough to do that. Like masculinity, as much as it is the beating on your chest and you know, the rest of it being a warrior and a gladiator, but it's also being a poet. It's also being able to be still. It's also being able to understand someone's emotions and actually reason with someone and feel someone's emotions and keep a space for someone's emotions and not take things personally and get angry. That's masculinity.
Yeah,
like
I love
actual
that.
True masculinity, you know?
Yeah, I love that.
And I think that's the misconception. And so when we speak about people coming together, true masculinity is actually being able to open up and having the courage to do that.
No, I love that. I love that. And maybe we can, you know, touch on what brought you to that spot, because, you know, a lot of people, especially when they start to become successful, people think they've always been successful, or, you know, they've had something that's helped them. And by help them, I don't mean, Pete, that you've gone out and sourced and worked with. I mean, a leg up that you maybe didn't deserve or whatever. But, you know, why don't we talk a little bit about your journey, if you wouldn't mind, you know, where you came from and, you know, what brought you to Dubai eventually?
Yeah. So I've always had something that my mum would describe as delusions of grandeur. And I put it down to when I was young, I was always very inspired. But I think that I was inspired by films like Rocky, Spider-Man, Gladiator, you know, Wolf of Wall Street, these kind of things. But at the same time, I also wanted to be nothing like the environment that I grew up in. And the environment that I grew up in, not very close with my mum, very toxic relationship, don't know my dad. I grew up in a house that had fights and arguments and the place getting smashed up all the time, right? We didn't have a lot of money. And there was things that went on in the house that made me feel a strong type of way that I never wanted to be like that. And I would always say from a very young age, I will be successful. I will be in a place where, like, I don't need to be here. I don't need to, you know, be in these prison cells. That's how I felt. And so that energy has always been with me. And I remember when things used to happen in the home, I used to go upstairs, I used to write on a piece of paper, I will be successful, I will be successful. And when I was younger, I thought that would be like boxing, or I'd be like a boxing champion or something like that. And I've always had an entrepreneurial mind. So when I was in school, like 14 years old, I was like buying sweets from the shop, and then I would like sell them in school. I was like trying to monetize like dancing or like getting a paper round. Like I was always trying to do something, right? And that was because I was always trying to escape my home environment. And so that's kind of where the cogs got turning of like being an entrepreneur, I guess.
And that's super interesting because, you know, a lot of people, you know, have a particular home life as they grow up, and that may be bad, good, normal, whatever normal is. But sometimes people take it the wrong way, and sometimes people take it the right way, right? And, you know, the hard luck story does in some instances motivate you if you're that type of character, but it could also send you the other way. And interestingly, I'd love to touch on boxing as well, because I was listening to, I can't remember exactly what it was I was listening to now, a podcast of some kind. They're talking about funding of boxing clubs is coming down quite a lot, and a lot of closing, and they were talking about a lot of kids, and even someone like Anthony. I'm not a massive fan of Anthony Joshua personally. I think he's a bit arrogant, but even someone like Anthony Joshua, they talk about him, you know, coming up in the streets, and actually, if he hadn't had boxing, he could have had a very different life. Could have ended up in jail, you know, all those sorts of things. So I'd love to hear, like, what age were you when you got into boxing, and did that help you with discipline and, you know, things like that?
Yeah. But first of all, my ambition, my goals saved me, and my boxing saved me. Like, that is like 1000%. Okay, so boxing. First of all, boxing will humble you. Boxing, if you have a good coach, boxing will humble you, because you can walk in the gym as whoever you think you are and have this chip on your shoulder. And that's all the guys in the gym. We all walk in there with a chip on our shoulder. Some people angry, some people with upset, some people with this. It doesn't matter. You walk into the gym, you get in a boxing ring, you're soon going to find out about yourself.
You get punched in the face and all of a sudden.
You're soon going to find out about yourself.
Yeah.
And number two, the training is hard.
Yeah.
And it takes grit to get through that. And when you keep going and going, you know, you build up this respect. And what I was taught in boxing anyway is, number one, the best boxer is the calmest person in the room. That's like one of the lessons that I was taught. And number two, you're taught about like actually what you can do. Yeah. And you're not allowed, like, you know, like if I was to have been getting into fights and then gone into the boxing gym, I would have got kicked out. That's not tolerated. It's not respected, right? And number three, the discipline that it takes to go to boxing 3 times a week for an hour and a half to 2 hours. Then I would also have to do my runs outside of that. It keeps you dedicated. You're always having to cut weight, prepare for the fight. And then like, it's a competitive environment, but it's also like home as well. And so to answer your question, like how did that help me? Number one, it gave me something to focus on, and something to put my energy into, which was really important for me, because I was definitely someone that wasn't aware of my feelings, and it would come out in other ways, and I had a lot of energy from that, and boxing was a good catalyst for me to kind of put that energy into. Number two, you learn a lot in the gym, and also it makes you very disciplined. I was never someone that would walk around thinking that I could take on the whole world. I mean, I definitely feel like I could defend myself and I could handle myself if any situation was to arise, but I would always try to...
You got looking for it.
Yeah, never, because I'd get in trouble. Do you know what I mean? And number three, you make friends for life. For example, a good friend of mine called Zeke, I call him Zeke the Freak, for no particular reason, but he's coming to Dubai on Friday. And like we was training together since we was super young, like 12, 13, 14 years old. And like just friends for life. And it's still the same when you see each other, and you just have that you know, that bond. Yeah,
that's amazing. And I guess that leads on to that point around boxing clubs closing is a potential problem for the UK and for young people in the UK that maybe don't have that outlet, and boxing maybe was or could have been, and boxing clubs closing could be a real problem then for young people.
Yeah, I personally think that they go a complete wrong way about helping children. Boxing is all about discipline for boys and girls. We was training with girls as well, not as many as the guys, of course, but the girls that were in there were still just as disciplined, would still show up and train. And I think what people need to understand is that discipline is super important.
Yeah. Do you think though that because people, all they see, if you like, is the glitz and the glamour of boxing, so all they see is the big fights, the pay-per-views, the people getting paid very decent amounts of money to walk in a ring and punch someone in the face. I can understand if you've never been in if you've never been in that world. I grew up in a middle class town. It wasn't a horrible upbringing by any stretch of the imagination. People around, there was a lot of kind of positive. There was wealth around me. So my family weren't rich, but we grew up in a kind of environment. So I don't know what it's like to grow up in a tough, kind of world, tough house, tough streets, whatever that may be. And so I think when people look at boxing, they see the money that's in it now, and they have no idea what it takes to get there. Yeah. And I think that's one of the most important things here is the discipline. It's a bit like the army as well, right? The discipline, getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning to run for an hour, 2 hours, whatever it may be, plus your training as well. People just don't understand that.
Yeah. 100%. And you have to understand as well, like we speak about these pay-per-view fights. There's only a few pay-per-view fights that go on that we're actually interested in. For the most part, like the actual boxing, do you know what York Hall is? Yeah. Like the guys that fight there, and like the actual boxing, like there's no money in it. Yeah. People do it because they love it. Yeah. And for a lot of boxers, it's everything, and boxers don't know what to do without it. Like they feel lost. And like I was even like that. I luckily found like the gym, and I got into that, and like I found like a few other things, but I still feel now lost without it. And I think for a lot of people, boxing is their anchor. It's an outlet. It's, you know, if something's on your mind, just go to the boxing gym.
Yeah, and I guess it's a bit like, I'm a big football fan. I guess it's a bit like football, right? The Premier League, the glitz and the glamour, everyone sees that. But actually, it's the grassroots. It's, you know, I'm from Cheltenham, and as much as I can when I'm in the UK, I try and go and watch Cheltenham, my local team. And the football's just they're League Two, so the fourth tier. Like, it's very different, but it's real. Like, they're real people living real lives. There's no, you know, £1 million salaries. There's no, you know, Lambos outside in the parking lot. It is real people, and some of them have got jobs as well because they have to, because they don't earn enough. And like, that's the reality of the majority of people. And I guess it's the same in boxing. The majority of people in boxing aren't earning millions.
No, they're definitely not.
You know, some of the big ones, of course, are. But people don't see the
majority of boxing, they work full-time jobs. They train 2 to 3 times a day, and they're like some of the hardest working people I know. One of my friends, Jamie Lee Carley, God rest his soul, you know, he was a pro boxer. He was working all day. He would run in the mornings, train in the evenings. He'd be dieting and cutting and eat like all the time. And like, I remember he said to me, and to be honest, this is sort of one of the reasons why I didn't pursue a pro career, is because I asked him, "Oh, what's the money like?" He said, "Shit." He said he barely makes enough money to make it like thingy, but he's just doing it for the love and the passion. And you know, when we'd go there and we'd be screaming his name, "Go on, Jamie, go on!" and everyone's around, and you feel that energy, and like it's the energy of it, and it's just the moment that is just so special. And this ain't on TV, this ain't none of that, but it's just like, it's just, you know, good entertainment for people to be around. It inspires all the kids. I remember when we was younger, we'd know all the pros. These pros aren't on TV, but we still all know them. We'd look up to them, like Danny Connor and these kind of guys. Like, if you look, if you're watching this, look them up, look up these names. You'll find them on the internet, but they was never on big TV fights, but they were still our kind of heroes when we was young, you know?
Yeah, and that's the thing, you know, I remember when Anthony Joshua first came out, and you know, from his first fight, he was on the undercard on Sky. You know, so, you know, there's people like that will be, you know, from day one, you can effectively watch their whole career from their first fight all the way through. But there's a lot of people that don't get that at all.
You have to remember though as well, he was in the Olympics, gold medalist,
true,
heavyweight. There's a lot of factors, and I will say as well, like, heavyweight boxing is different to like other weight classes. People are super excited about heavyweights, and you don't need to necessarily be a very good technical fighter if you're a heavyweight. Like, if you can have a fight and punch good as a heavyweight, like, you can still go far.
I guess Deontay Wilder's a good example of that.
Exactly.
You can knock people out for a living, then you can go far.
That is actually a good example. Deontay Wilder, he's a freak of nature. His boxing skills aren't great. Like, he's like this, and you know, but when he bangs you with that right hand, you're going to sleep.
Get him over. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No, it's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting. And so, you know, moving, I guess, away from boxing and then touching on some of the other things that, you know, helped you on your journey. You know, I said to you before we kind of went live, as it were, you know, I know people hate things like hustle and, you know, building habits and affirmations. And I said to you, you know, I don't stand in the mirror every day and do an affirmation, but I do believe in the fact that if I think negative things will happen. If I think positive, I'm going to bring more positive things around me, because it's just natural. It's just what happens, right? So, like, what you know, you talked about habits and things. What sort of things inspired you and made you kind of grow as a person?
Yeah, good question. So what inspired me and what made me grow as a person? So what inspired me was that I want to live a high level experience in life just because I can. Now, that's only a theory. I have to go and prove that in my life to actually prove that it's possible to go from where I started to where I want to go. And that's what inspires me. Like, I get up and I'm like, yep, I want to have a great life. I want to have a great life for my future family. I want to be able to provide for my family. And you know, most people's problems come down to like finance. Do you know what I mean? And like, I don't want that to be a problem in my family. I want to break the curse or the chain or whatever it is. And when people say, oh, but why? Because I can.
Yeah.
I've got one life. This is a game, essentially. And I'm choosing my character. And my character is going to be the person that goes from nothing to something and is multi-millionaire and huge successful person just because I chose to, because I can. Number one.
Yeah. And sorry to jump in, you know, what pisses me off in the world is that some people will listen to that and go, well, why do you want a multi-millionaire? Why will that make you happy? And I'm like, you know, I'd tell you one thing, and I'm sure you experienced this as a youngster. Money tears people apart.
Yeah.
In a bad way. In terms of if you don't have any. Yes, it can tear people apart. You know, I've got friends and people that have made, you know, the family that they are a part of has made a lot of money, and even the money has teared them apart. So I'm not saying it's everything, but not having any of it sure as hell tears you apart as well, right?
100%. Listen. Financial stress is the worst kind of stress. That's the kind of shit that will like have you up at night, anxious, sitting there like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Other stress, you can get on with it. There's pain, there's like emotional pain, and like, you know, that will be with you for a while, and that will move through. But financial stress, that shit will sit with you until you fix it, right? And so what was the original question that you asked me? So it was what inspires me?
Inspiring, you know, things like habits, affirmation, things like that. Okay. What sort of those sorts of things?
So I didn't know about all of that stuff when I first started. So at first, it was the hustle mentality. I didn't know what I was doing most of the time. It was just, I was trying to do a lot of different things, right? But then eventually some things would stick, some things wouldn't. And so like over time, what you then can start to doing is like, if you can sit down and analyze what's going on in your life, okay, what's gone well and what didn't go so well. And over a while, you start to be able to kind of store up this data of what's going well and what's not. All right, fast forward to now, because it's a different way. It's a difficult way, I feel, to answer the question from that angle. I'm just going to come from this angle. Look, what makes up somebody, okay, hang on, before I get into that, it's not what you do in life, it's who that does it that will make it successful, right? So there's millions of accounting companies, there's millions of marketing, there's millions of singers, there's millions of everything, right? But it's not what you do. So if you do singing or if you do accounting, it's not going to make you successful, but it's who that does it.
I love that.
And what makes who someone is, it's their thoughts, it's their habits, and it's their daily actions.
I love that.
That's what builds up who someone is. And now if who you are creates what you're doing, and you know, your thoughts, your habits and all stuff like that, then that's what you need to focus on. And now if you want to be visualize this next level of yourself, right? The future person. So in 5 years time, think to yourself, what do I want to be celebrating? It's like, okay, who is that? Like, what do I want to be in 5 years? And it's like, okay, you got this vision in your mind, and it's like, what does that person do? What does this person 5 years from now, what are their habits? What do they think? What kind of things do they do? And then bring all of that to where you are now. And then that's how you progress, right? And that's how I try to look at what I'm doing. And so, yeah.
Yeah, it's really, and you know, as an accountant, numbers are a big part of my life, right? And you know, when we're talking to clients and we talk about their future, and we might say, you know, let's look at the next 3-5 years or whatever. Like, where do you want your business in 5 years? Let's say you've got nothing, you know. Let's say you've got a 100 grand business today, and you want to get to a 10 million pound business in 5 years.
Yeah,
you got to put that marker in the sand to then go, okay, well, if I want 10 million in 5 years, what do I need to do after year one? What do I need to do after year two? How do I get to that? Is it realistic that if I only do this in year one, that I can actually get to that in year two? And it's a little bit like a sat nav. And I say this to people all the time about your business, right? Is you don't just, when you've got a sat nav in the car, you don't just drive. Sat nav's probably the old school thing to say these days because we use our phones, but you get my point, right? Is you have to put your destination. You have to say, this is where I want to go, right? And sometimes you want the fastest route. Sometimes you want the scenic route. Sometimes you want actually a slower route, but maybe it's a little bit more interesting than the fastest route, you know? And a good example, right? I've Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, I drove back and forth from Abu Dhabi, right? And a couple of times I went a different way. It was a slower way, but I was like, I'm really bored of driving down one road in a straight line and I was like, actually, I want to take a slightly different route. And my point of that, bringing that back to business and personal stuff, is you need, and it's a bit like what you've just said around the habits, the financial goals, all those things. If you don't have that marker, you've got absolutely no idea where you're going and how you're going to get there. So I really like what you just said, put a marker. What is that person, the person that I want to be in 5 years, what do they look like? What habits do they have? What people do they mix with? What financial position are they in? What business do they have? Because I think all those things, then you can set that journey and you can decide to take this one. You can decide to take this one. You can decide to take this one.
Yeah.
But at least, Google Maps quite often gives you 3 routes, So yeah, I think that's a really important factor, is looking at that end goal and what do you want to achieve.
Yeah, listen, there's so many people that go through life in cruise control.
Yeah.
And you're just going to wander around life and wonder why things happen, and you're going to guess what kind of results you're going to get from life. But look, life is, I don't want to say life is simple, but it is when you break it down simply. Like what we just covered, like you're like, okay, this is what builds who you are, blah, blah, blah. You need to be someone that is very conscious of everything that goes on in your life. Now, from a numbers perspective, I'm sure you would say to every business owner, you need to know your numbers. You need to know everything that's going on in your business, or it's going to be a mess. It's like life. Now, I'm not so good with the numbers stuff. Like that's actually a goal for me next year, because I've always just been someone that bombs forward and focuses on expansion. But I want to become like better at the numbers and things like that, because I know that that's going to help me be a bit better businessman and have more control over predictable outcomes, right? And it's a bit like yourself. You need to be conscious of the choices you're making on a micro scale every day. How are you thinking? What are you doing? Etc. etc.
No, I totally agree, and I think you can put it, like you say, personal and business in the same bracket, and really kind of narrow down and focus. And then that means, I think as well, you don't always need to get bogged down on the day-to-day, because you've actually set a goal, you've set steps towards that goal. And if today is a shit day, fine, we move on. Tomorrow,
you get up, go again.
We start again.
And look, this is another thing, right? Stop focusing on outcomes. Outcomes are going to give you anxiety. They're going to give you all of this shit. Outcomes aren't why you're doing something. Okay, so outcomes are things like how much money is in your bank account, how much you're going to get paid, what your house looks like. Anything material is an outcome. Okay, stop focusing on the material stuff. Stop focusing on the outcomes. The things that actually matter is the process. The process is your daily routine. So say, for example, for myself, I'm up at 4 a.m. I do 90 minutes of like lead gen and prospecting. Then I go to the gym for 90 minutes, 45-minute weight, 45-minute run. Then I go and walk my dog for an hour. Then after that, I do like journaling and reading. And then I work all day until whenever I'm done, go to bed, do the same thing. And I know that the first part of the day, if I get all of that done, then that's what I validate myself on. That's what I feel good about. And I know that's the important stuff that's going to help me get the outcomes that I want. But I don't focus on the outcomes because it's going to make me feel bad. I focus on the process because that's what makes me feel good. And if I take my validation from the process, it doesn't matter what goes on in my life. I don't need to worry about that. I just need to attach to the process. Did I wake up today? Did I do this? Did I do that? Yep, I can feel good about that. I don't need to feel anxious about whatever else is going on.
Yeah, do you know that? And that's really, like, even, for me sat here, that's really made me think about, my take on stuff, because, the gym as an example, right? 2-3 years ago, every time I say that, it's actually getting longer. But I was quite fit, I could run, I could lift, and not anything crazy, but, I was in okay, I was doing all right. And then I just completely lost track of it. It fell out of my life. I didn't want to do it. And now I'm slowly trying to get myself back into it, right? And my missus said to me a couple of weeks ago, she was like, just go and walk on the treadmill for half an hour. And I was like, well, that's pointless, isn't it?
It's not.
What's the point in that? And she was like, but it's not. It's because it's starting that habit. It's starting that. And that's kind of what you just said there, right? I think if I don't go to the gym and run really fast or lift a load of really heavy weights, I may as well not bother.
Yeah.
But actually, that's completely the wrong. Yeah. So I'm focusing on that output that you talked about, right?
Yeah. And look, it's about the process. So as well, when you spoke about you taking your clients from where they are here to where they want to be in 5 years, you're not going to make them do the routine they'll be doing in 5 years. Like now, it's like, okay, you're going to start off here, little bits, and then over the time, you're going to increase it, right? And it's a bit like with you. And I can relate to that a lot because my routine is very strict. But let me tell you, when I'm out of routine, I feel like I'm all over the place. I'm a mess. And I'm like, I struggle to like pick it back up. And it takes me like maybe like 1, 2, 3 days until I can be back in full effectiveness. And that's because I have to build up that momentum. But the important thing is that you don't quit. Like, it would be really good for you to just be like, I'm going to go and do 5 minutes. Make it super easy for yourself. Just tick off the wins, because it's not the gym, or it's not the 2-hour workout that's actually the most important thing. The most important thing is just showing up and getting the win. So even if you went there for 5 minutes and just did some of this, it's still a win. And then the next day you go back again and get that win and get that win. And it's just all about ticking off the wins.
I think that's a really good habit. It comes back to habits, consistency, all those things that we talked about. The more and the reason I was doing well in the gym previously was because it was a habit. And also I'd get pissed off if I didn't go, because I was like, no, I'm like, this is my routine. Then I fell out of the routine. And then getting back into that routine is always the challenge. And
I can relate a lot on that. And that's when you're feeling anxious. That's when you start having all these other things going on in your head, and it starts affecting other areas of your life, and maybe you're feeling a bit shit and this and that. And look, when I say the thing about take your validation from the process, so validation can come in many different ways. People can validate themselves with sex, with attention from women. People can validate themselves with how much money I've got, or I've got a nice car, or I've got a nice watch. These are all you're validating yourself on the wrong things, because that shit don't matter. It doesn't matter. The only thing that will actually truly give you that wholeness within yourself and that true confidence is the things that when you validate yourself on the process. Did I get up today? Did I do my reading? Did I go to the gym? Did I do all of that? Okay, I've done all of that. I feel good. And even if you're tired, by the time you've done all your non-negotiables and you want to go back to bed, go back to bed. But at least you've done the things that you said I have to do for me to feel good.
Have you heard of a guy called Andy Frisella?
No.
Have a look at his content. He does a thing called 75 Hard.
I've heard that.
Yeah, so I think he came up with it initially, and then it's become a little bit more kind of viral now. But it's one of those things where it's like you have these things. So like, I can't remember exactly what they are, so I won't be doing it justice. But it's like, read 10 pages of a book every day, drink X amount of water every day, and while you're doing this, 75 Hard is for 75 days basically. Yeah. No alcohol free. I mean, I don't drink. I don't think you drink either. But like, if you not drinking for 75 days, and all these, eat whatever, work out twice a day, and there's all these different things. Now, what his thing is, the first day really hard, second day quite hard, and it's hard and hard and hard. By the time you get to like day 60, it's like it's ingrained in you, like it's you are this thing. And actually people go, wow, 75 days is quite hard, or what have you. But actually when you get to day 60, it's like, and if you fail on one of those days, you go back to the start. So it's not like I'll skip today and I'll do day 7 tomorrow instead of today. No. If you skip a day, you go back to day 1. And like that, he's quite, you should definitely watch his content. He's quite he's an American guy. He's quite not aggressive, that's not the right word, but like he's a kind of macho kind of guy. But it's all about those habits and those hitting those non-negotiables. And you can't go to sleep until you hit them.
And do you know what? It's really funny. I'm someone that doesn't usually like talking about this topic, because I see so many coaches talking about it, and it's self-sabotage. And like when you say, for example, you're on day 60, and then you just get that voice in your head that says, I can't be bothered today. It's only one day. And you ain't even got that much on. You're just battling yourself. You're like, I know that I shouldn't, but I just really want to. Or that's the backwards and forwards in your head that you're battling with yourself. That is something inside of you that is unhealed. And that is something that's stopping you from getting to the level that you want to get to. And that is sabotage. That is your body literally on your brain attacking itself. And that is the biggest thing that we all deal with.
100%.
Like, I battle with that so much. That's the biggest battle, is that conflict of your brain. It's like you've got God on one shoulder, devil on the other, and it's that battle that happens in your head.
I battle with that every single day. I battle with that every day. I want to do things better, and I don't, or
I don't go to the gym, or I don't do that. And, I've got, living in a place like we are in Dubai, you've got no excuse. Not like you wake up in the morning, it's freezing cold outside, it's raining, you can't bother to go to the gym. Most of us have gyms in our building. I said to someone the other day, my gym is 2 floors down from where I am.
Yeah.
I've got no excuse. It's free. Like, there's absolutely, and the few times that I went, I did a little workout, I jumped in the pool after. What a way to start your day.
Yeah.
Bright sunshine.
Feels good.
In the pool, still get to your desk at night. Like, my kids and my missus my missus works at a school. They leave the house at 7:30 in the morning. I've got no excuse. I should be up. But some days I wake up and I go, do you know what? I'll just have an extra half an hour today.
Yeah.
Or at the end of the day, I should read that book, and I go, I'll just scroll through Instagram, or and it's
these tiny choices,
and they're the things that I battle with. I battle with those every single day.
This is what going back to what Pete does with the men's work, the inner work.
You should pay us for this, by the way.
Yeah. I just send an invoice to him. Like, this is the men's work, the deep inner work. So what we're talking about now, where literally our brain will just tell us not to do something, like this compounded time, okay, the amount of times that our brain tells us not to do something and we don't do it, and like whatever, that adds up to a lot of time. Imagine like all of these moments that are over the last 5 years, if we took action that we should take in the times that mattered, where we could actually be, we'd all be so much further ahead.
100%.
Right? All of us. And this is exactly what men's work is, and it's what inner work is. And look, becoming successful in life, you have to be some type of person. It's no secret. Like, you don't just see some random guy that's just successful. You have to become someone that's successful, and that takes a lot of inner work. And to attract more money, to attract more opportunities, success, and people, and this and that, you have to be someone that is like, on some shit. And that comes from doing the inner work. Because let me tell you now, if you're sat at home, and you're someone that sabotages, you do all of this, if someone just started paying you 10 grand a month, you'd throw it up the walls and like do whatever. And so it takes the discipline and the inner work to be able to, number one, obtain that money, then number two, retain being paid that, and number three, to then go beyond that. And that's where the inner work comes in. And I know maybe this might be a bit woo-woo, but like, it's so true, because when I was younger, I started getting paid a lot. I spent on pizza, weed, stupid shit. But now, like,
you wouldn't dream of that.
Yeah,
it's a bit like alcohol. Like, you could easily live in somewhere like this, young guy, mid-20s, you could easily earn a decent wage here and go and blow it all at a weekend.
Yes.
In the beach clubs, all those sorts of, there's so many things that you could do here but actually, like, for me, alcohol was it was a kind of mental health thing for me, that it made me in a place I didn't want to be, right? So I took it out of my life, and that's helped me significantly in a lot of things. But it's very easy for you to come here and to have that, but actually you've decided not to, for whatever reason, for you personally. And I find that super interesting as well.
Yeah. Well, look, for me, it's nothing. Like, I never was a big drinker. I've been drunk a few times in my life.
I guess boxing meant you couldn't do a lot of it.
I just never got into it. Yeah. And also, I don't like feeling out of control.
Yeah, exactly what I like.
I like knowing that if any situation was to arise, I can still...
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I can still, deal with myself and what's going on around me. And the thing is with, like, I remember when I first drank, like, I had such a headache. The next day, I felt so, like, shit. And, like, if that's how people feel, like, oh, my God, why would you want to feel like that?
And the anxiety.
Yeah, like, I would rather go take a walk in the mountain with my dog.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or, like, I would rather come and do the podcast, or come and just do something.
Yeah. It's so funny, though, isn't it? Because, and, like, it's easy for me to sit here as a person that doesn't drink. And, I spoke to our UK team, had their Christmas party at the weekend, and I was like, how was the party to people? And they were like, yeah, saw her Sunday morning. So, like, that's the answer that everyone gives. Was it fun? Yeah, it was fun. But, like, the amount of times that if I was in the UK, say I went, right, I would have gone, they had a meal, and then went and did what they did after. I'd have gone for the meal, I'd had some nice food, I'd have had a couple of Cokes, or maybe a non-alcoholic beer or something like that.
Yeah.
And I'd have gone home at 11 o'clock, something like that.
Yeah.
And I'd have woke up the next morning ready to do whatever I needed to do. Yeah. Most of them from that 11 o'clock to that 3 o'clock in the morning, what actually happens in reality?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, is there anything that happens in that time that you're like, oh, I'm so annoyed that I missed that?
Yeah.
And that's what amazes me about these things, is even if you do drink, but maybe you have 3 or 4 or whatever it may be, you get to 11 o'clock, you finish up, you go home, you start the next day. Like, I don't get the 11 till 3, 11 till 4. Do you know what I mean? I just don't get that part, like what that achieves.
Yeah. I think it's just like the stimulation of it, probably. I don't know 100% what someone gets from it. I mean, if you're a guy, maybe you're trying to get or trying to do something like that. If you're a girl, I don't know, but like, also it could just be people not thinking. People just switch, like they just want to numb out and just
and that's also fine as well. You know, I don't want to sit here and be like, you shouldn't go out after 11 o'clock and drink alcohol.
Yeah, look, as I said this to someone yesterday, I said not everyone's mind is meant to be freed.
Yeah.
You know, there are some, everyone has their place in this world. And if your place in this world is someone that goes out drinking at night and, you know, does whatever, then that's your place in this world.
Yeah, and that's totally fine.
Makes it easier for me and yourself.
People.
Do you know what I mean? We have the discipline to go home to do this, and we're going to get up the next day and feel great and do whatever. And that's fine. More people start drinking. I encourage it.
Look, you know, we're coming towards the end of our time, and I've really enjoyed chatting and whatnot. But I'd love to touch on some of the bits that you're doing in terms of the social media, branding, networking, because I think, you know, we've talked about a lot of these habits. We've talked about a lot of these also insecurities, and, you know, I'll be honest with you, networking is an insecurity for me. You know, even now.
Is that why you're always dodging my events?
Yeah, pretty much. No. The kind of the thing for me that I quite often, even when I presented this morning to a group of business owners in the crypto world on accounting and tax and regulatory stuff, and like when someone says to me, "Do you want to do it?" I'm like, 100%, I'm in. Let's do it. And then as that gets closer and closer, the nerves, and not even nerves from I'm unsure about this, but just that anxiety kicks in. Do you know what I mean? That thing that we talked about a minute ago, that thing in your head, the self-sabotage thing. And that's where a lot of, it hasn't happened with your events, I promise, but that's where a lot of these things, where I would have an event booked, I'd have a networking evening or whatever it may be, and I'd get to that day and I'd make an excuse as to why I can't do it, because my body would be sabotaging. For people like that, like how do you feel like, I don't know how the question's worded here, but
I think I understand what you're saying. So what you're trying to say is how to get around that.
Yeah.
Like, look, I have experienced similar things. So when I was younger, I used to model and I wanted to do acting, and I would get invited to do shoots, and I would get invited to go on like set, and I would get to the moment and I would just, I have to do something else, or this, like it would be something, like I wouldn't just make it up, but like I would choose that instead. And that again is sabotage. And really you just need to look at yourself and be like, okay, like go into a meditation, go into like some quiet state and just speak with yourself, understand why it's happening. First of all, understand it's okay that it happens. It's okay that it's happening, but are you going to continue to let it happen?
Yeah, and I guess that's where going back to our earlier conversation around habits, but also, you know, personal development, and go to a networking event, go for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, who cares? Just go for 10 minutes, speak to one person.
Yeah, the most important thing is showing up and just getting that win.
Yeah.
And like, honestly, like there's some things now where like I can battle with. I'll journal on it, or I'll go into a meditation. The best thing to do is try and understand it. Once you understand it more and you stop hiding from that and you actually address something within yourself, then you have more control over it. You know, where it's coming from. You can notice the feelings are coming up when you're in a situation for that. And then, you know, you have more control over yourself, you know?
Yeah, I think journaling it's not something I do. It is something that I've thought about before. And again, people think about journaling with this kind of pre-existing mindset of this wishy-washy, and journaling could just be a few bullet points.
It could be whatever. There's no rules.
Yeah.
It's just put out whatever is in you. You don't even have to speak about your feelings. You can write, oh, this went well in work. This is what I want to improve on. Or you could speak about your feelings. Oh, my girlfriend was horrible to me today and it didn't make me feel good, or whatever, or whatever it is. Do you know what I mean? That's fine. And it's just having like the most important thing with journaling is we can sit and have thoughts that go around our head all day, but like they're not actually real until you put it in front of you and you're actually able to see it in front of you and actually understand, oh, this is what's going on in my head, and this okay.
Yeah, and it's like reading a book, isn't it? You can read a book and read the page 3 times and then read it for a 4th time and go, what? I'm sure I didn't read. Like, you know, it's just because when you just zoned into looking and the day to day, whereas actually, like you say, journaling, writing something down, bullet pointing, you know, 5 things. I think that might have been another thing in the 75 Hard is journaling or something like that. So then lastly, I guess, just to finish up on kind of branding and stuff and personal branding, you know, you and I think spoke about it when we first met as well. You know, it's something that I'm really passionate about is growing a personal brand. It's part of the reason we do this podcast is, you know, 1, I get to speak to amazing people like yourself, but 2, you know, it is a good thing to build the brand and to build the me and whatnot. Where do you sit on the personal branding space? You know, I follow your Instagram. You have lots of different things on there, personal, business, you know.
Yeah. Can I just give myself a little shout out, by the way?
Oh, yeah.
If you're on Instagram, please follow me.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll link it in the description.
And right. So when I was younger and I was boxing, I used to have like a hashtag called #TeamBeardy, and like I would literally put it on every single post. I would get T-shirts with it, and you know, I was always like just posting about it, Team Beardy, and I was like posting videos of my boxing and things like that. And when I started then going into clubs, people that I did not know would come up to me and be like, "Oh, is your name Kai Beard?" And I'm like, "Yeah, Team Beardy," blah blah blah. And it was like, even just something like that, I was very popular in my area, but people knew me for Team Beardy because that's just what I did. Now I don't have like huge amounts of followers, just in my area. The fact that people knew that and would just say to me Team Beardy, even as a joke, you know, it's still that they know. And so that's the thing about like personal branding, is just like, you got to keep putting things in people's face and then it will eventually stick. And now I'm not like the biggest, I don't have like a huge Instagram account or a huge following, right? But like, here's what I can say about it, and I will one day have a huge account. I will be one of the most successful entrepreneurs and one of the figures, and that's what I'm putting out there, right? But what I do know is back in the day, I used to try and be a lot of different people, and I used to try to emulate a lot of different people. All right, fair enough. Probably people are going to say, who does he think he is? Andrew Tate. Yes, wearing my glasses inside because I'm trying to look cool. But here's the thing. Be genuine. Be yourself. Speak your mind and speak your truth, and just post about what you do and what you think about and your life, because each and every single one of us is incredibly unique. We all have different takes on things. We all have different opinions. Like, yes, we're into like roughly the same sort of shit or whatever, but just be genuine around all of that stuff, and like you will eventually find like your crowd, you know. And then obviously like there's a consistency. Like if you really do want to blow up on social media, you have to do like 4 posts a day and whatever. It's a lot of fucking graft. Do you know what I mean? But if you're just starting out and want to do some posts and things like that, it's just be genuine, post about what you do, and you know, just speak your mind.
I think with Instagram as well, especially with stories, you can post a literal clip. Not even clip. It doesn't even need to be a clip. You could just literally snap a photo right now, be like recording podcast, or you know, driving home, take a picture of the driving home and being like, busy day driving home. Like, you know, like it started to give people, you know, when we spoke about your dog on the way up here in the lift, I knew about it because I'd seen it.
That's an interesting point, actually.
You know, and it's those little things that actually then when you start talking about something, I can go, I feel like I know what you're talking about. I feel like I know what you kind of been going through and what situation you're in, and because I've seen it on your, you know, on your story, and I'm one of those that I'm much better at it now, but I'm one of those where I go take that kind of picture or whatever and I write that caption and I'm like, oh, I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, that's like, look, I understand, like it depends on your positioning, right? I see myself in like a really grey area. I'm a bit controversial with some of it because I'm honest. I say what I think.
Love that.
But this is the thing, right?
That shouldn't be controversial though, you know. And Andrew Tate's sorry to jump in. Andrew Tate's a good example, right? Because he is controversial. Some of the things he says are actually controversial, and he does that deliberately, right? Because that helps him as a brand. I love Andrew Tate, by the way. But a lot of what he does is not controversial. He's just being honest.
Yeah.
And why should what he says about a certain subject, why should that necessarily be controversial? Because you said it is, because the media says it is, because people don't like somebody that's, you know, and that's the, you did give me Andrew Tate vibes, by the way, in your solo. But I loved it. No, but yeah, so I think, yeah, it's like you say, being true to yourself, being honest, and being respectful. Absolutely, by the way. I think you should be respectful to people and cultures and, you know, and different people that want to act their lives in different way. That's totally fine.
Yeah.
But being honest and being true is much better than being fake.
Yeah. And I agree with you. And not everyone, like, we live in such like a snowflake world where saying
part of the reason I left the UK.
You know, yeah. But like here's the thing, right? So I'm operating in a corporate environment. I've never worked in corporate in my life, but I'm still working in a corporate environment. But then I also am someone that says what I think. And I'm in like this weird gray area where like on one half of me, my client, like, you know, corporate guys are so like, you know, as you know, at this event you was at, the Suits. You know, they're very like, I can't say this, I can't say that. But then who I am as a person, I fucking say what I want. Yeah,
exactly. And why shouldn't you?
Yeah.
Like, and I don't have to agree with you.
Yeah.
I can disagree with what you say. But that doesn't mean that I don't like you, or it doesn't mean that I think you're like, do you know what I mean? Like, you know, that's what frustrates me about this world. And I know that we need to end up this in a minute because we'll be going well over the time that we normally do. But that's what frustrates me about this world is like, people think that if you've got a different opinion to them, then they must not like you.
Yeah.
Or they must have, you must be wrong, or you must be controversial. You must, like, no, I just got a different opinion.
You know what? Most of the most intelligent people that I know can sit down, listen to an opinion they don't agree with, ask why, understand their perspective, share their opinion, discuss it, talk about it, and have a great conversation. That is how I think things should be. But people seem to think that things should just be one track. There's one opinion that everyone should have. If you have an opinion, then it's wrong, and you should be taken off the internet. You should be censored, and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I had a conversation with a friend when I was back in the UK about Donald Trump. And, you know, I don't know Donald Trump as a person. I don't imagine that he's the nicest human being that's ever existed, if I'm honest with you. I imagine that there's some brutal parts of him that have made him as successful as he is.
Successful leader.
Be successful.
Yeah.
And there's something about that makes you, if you are successful, if you are a leader, if you're somebody that understands how to grow and run a business, I think that's a good thing for a country, right? Anyway, this person said to me, yeah, but Donald Trump's a bad person. And I was like, but why? Like, why is he a bad person? Oh, well, I watched BBC News the other day and they told me he's a bad person. But have you also listened to him? Oh, no, I wouldn't dare listen to him. How? Okay. A bit like Andrew Tate. I was actually at a spa and with my missus. There was these 4 women next to us. This is a while ago now. And they were literally just slagging Andrew Tate off. None of them had ever watched any of his content. They just watched a BBC documentary about him. Now, are there things that Andrew Tate says that I disagree with? Absolutely. Like, there's things that most people out there that say that I personally disagree with. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean I think that everything they say therefore is wrong or whatever. You've got to hear both sides. You can't just take, and I do the same. I'll watch negative shows about somebody. I'll watch it with a pinch of salt, but I'll watch a BBC thing about Andrew Tate because I want to see what the other side is saying, because you can't make an informed decision or an informed kind of thought process unless you have both sides, right?
Yeah, I agree with you. 100%. I'm the same. I like both sides of the argument, and I make my own.
Make your own choice.
You know, and even if I do disagree with someone, like there's so many people, like what you just said, there's so many people I disagree with. My best friend is so different to me. I'm like this, you know, macho, corporate, hard-driven person. He's a hippie.
Yeah.
Like legit.
Yeah.
Like. But we're still best friends. We completely don't agree on 100%.
A similar thing.
Do you know what I mean?
I've got a mate, one of my closest mates in the UK, and he is like the biggest kind of socialist type person. Everyone should be treated equal, and you know, I don't believe in the kind of capitalist mentality. I believe totally in a capitalist mentality, like, you know, but he and I get on so well. And we actually, when we have debates, they're good debates that we have together. Yeah. Like we understand each other's point of view. We respect each other. You know?
And this is another thing to remember, right? There's no such thing as right or wrong. No. So like you can have an opinion on something, but like that's just an opinion that you formed because of the things that you've seen and your life experiences, etc., etc. That person is going to be in the same position as you. It's better to just be able to discuss things and discuss topics 100%. Like you just said, you know, and
make a decision and live with it.
Yeah,
make a comment and live with it.
Yeah,
like and what's the word? Like live it and breathe it. Like be it. Don't flake about. Don't one thing say one thing. One time, sorry, say one thing. and then when you go somewhere else, say something totally different.
Yeah.
Like, be you, be honest, be who, and that's what I say. I'll never
be authentic.
Yeah, exactly. I wouldn't say never's the wrong word. I will rarely go into a situation in a suit, right? In a suit and tie, in a business scenario, because that's not who I am, and I don't want to pretend that I'm a suited and booted person. That that person then buys into me because I'm wearing a suit, or they think that. So I don't want to say never, because there are circumstances where I would, but not be authentic, but I would wear a suit or whatever. But the point there is, like, if you don't want me for who I am, then that's totally fine. I have no problem with that. But let's just be honest about that and move on. Let's not pretend we're someone we're not. Do you know what I mean? So anyway, we could probably go on this little rampage for a while. So Kai, it's been amazing. Like,
I've really enjoyed our conversation.
Yeah, likewise. And maybe as the journey goes for you, maybe we can get you back on and hear about,
love to.
How the journey's moved on and things for you. So, but I know we mentioned we'll put a few descriptions, but if people want to find you,
LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, Kai Beard. Please follow me, support the journey, and watch the content, and make sure that you give this video a like as well.
Thanks so much, mate. Really good to see you.
You too.